This video will be about why I left the dairy industry and the dark side to a glass of milk or a block of cheese, coffee, cream, whatever dairy product you're consuming. You should be aware of what you are actually consuming. The deep emotional scarring felt by years of having your baby taken away, being pumped full of drugs after being tied up, and doing nothing but walking from your bed to your food trough and drinking water. When this goes on for years at a time, and as a former dairy farmer, I've witnessed this firsthand, and at first I was blind to it. But during what people refer to as awakening, I became very aware of the consciousness and emotions felt by the cattle, the calves that I was helping farm, milk, and I must say, it is actually disgusting how they are treated. Imagine you're a mother and your baby's taken away immediately after you've given birth. And then you're tied up, pumped full of drugs that are supposed to help you, but you got no clue about that because it's not like cows speak English. As the Buddhists say, the suffering of an animal is the lack of self-expression, the lack of the ability to express the self. One day, I walked into the calf barn, and one of the new calves I noticed was crying. So I knelt down, rested her head on my leg. She was less than a week or two old, and just exactly like any normal person would cry, huffing and puffing in frustration out of the lack of understanding of why they're chained to a wall and why they're in this situation and why they got taken away from their mother and why someone comes and shoves a needle in their ass every day. It really opened my eyes to the truth of the dairy industry. It is pretty black and white. The white may end up in your glass, but the emotional damage felt by these cows does too. It is retained in the milk. We already are very well aware the comfort of the animal plays a big factor in the quality of the milk. But even more so, the emotional state of the animal. You can tell very easily by their demeanor, how their ears are, and how they act. And it is far from pretty. I'd say it is morally disgraceful. It is disgusting. It is sick beyond compare what factory farming actually is. I could have owned my own barn. This is not the reason I turned it down, but it makes me even feel a little better that I did. Although knowing the amount of barns there are out there and the amount of animals that are going through this constant pain daily, I'll give you a short description of the day in the life of a dairy cow. So, imagine every day you're woken up in the morning, herded into a shiny metal stall, the same one that after you gave birth, because you were so flustered, scared, because of the experience of giving birth, and one or two guys with sticks beat your ass into this enclosure to milk you because you're so flustered you don't want to go in there because you're scared. You're utterly terrified with no comprehension of what's actually happening. So every day you are forced into this same area where you were beaten the first day. Now, I'm not saying all barns and all farmers are bad. There are definitely nicer farms out there. But in my experience, the emotional stress I've seen is immense. That is why I started, and I continue, to head in the vegetarian and vegan direction. It is not easy, but remembering why I'm doing it helps me understand. So after you're milked, you get to wander either back to your bed or go eat. Now, I've only heard rumors of this, but if any of you are familiar with what oxytocin is, apparently some farmers put it in the food. Now, I haven't personally witnessed this, but anyone who knows what oxytocin is knows it's the chemical released in your body when you're bonding with your child. And that, in food, is morally sick, disgusting. From a spiritual perspective, it is outrageous. Another thing. To be a calf, newborn, you are born with two instincts. to suckle on a nipple and to buck your head so your mother knows to drop her milk. Now again, not all barns are the same. Some will bottle feed for a reasonable amount of time, a week or two. Some 2 days. And then ignoring the instincts, which are very necessary if you're a calf, because it's all you know. It's all you're driven to do. Drinking out of a bucket, your head is in the opposite position instead of turned up, where it opens the valve in their throat. They're drinking with their head down. So, some calves are okay, some are not. But regardless, this leaves them with a need, an unfed or unfilled craving for something to suckle on. So they'll suckle on almost anything. Hands, other calves. It's just ridiculous. And back to dairy cows. Don't know enough to say how many cycles or pregnancies a cow will go through in their lifetime. But one of such cruelty is too much, let alone 5 to 7. I've seen other cows come up to a fresh cow who's just given birth and rub her head trying to comfort the fresh cow. Because they know. They're not so stupid as they're not aware to what's going on. They can feel emotions just like we can. So next time you pick up a glass of milk, think about the dark side.